Welcome to A Seeking Heart with Allison Gingras, distributed through Breadbox Media. I am joined today by my friend Rhonda Ortiz. We're going to talk about her new book, In Pieces. It is part of a series, the Molly Chase. Is that correct? Molly Chase
That's
series
right. Yep.
from Chrism Press. Now, all my listeners know I am not a fiction girl, but Rhonda, I think you have converted me, at least to your book. Welcome, Rhonda, and tell us about yourself and your new book, In Pieces.
Well, thank you for having me this morning. I appreciate it. So I'm Rhonda Ortiz. I am a writer, obviously. I'm also a founding editor of Chrism Press, which is a really great story. This book was involved in the founding of it. It's a really cool story for another time. And I am married to a theologian. We talk about everything from theology to diapers because we have 5 kids and 1 on the way. So that is the life of Rhonda. In Pieces is my debut novel. After 10 years of writing fiction, this was the first story that I had written that I was like, this one's going into the world. And here it is.
Oh, it's so beautiful. And of course,
Thank you. Thank
I'm
you.
excited because In Pieces is located in my backyard in Boston. Of course, we were talking before we went live. The Boston in your book, In Pieces, is not the Boston that I live 30 minutes away from.
That's right. Yeah, In Pieces is set in 1793 Boston. So we were talking before going live that Mill Pond has not yet been filled in. The Back Bay has not yet been filled in. It's not built up yet. At that time, in 1793, Boston had a population of about 18,000 people. It was the 3rd largest city in the U.S. At 18,000 people, if you can even imagine that. So it really was a backwater port. Yeah.
Yes. And right now you could probably find 18,000 people on the T in the on the subway. Probably more than that, but it's at 10 o'clock in the morning. So again, it's grown quite a bit since the time of your novel setting.
That's
So
right.
tell us, let's start there. Why is it even colonial Boston? I'm
No,
horrible
no,
at history.
no, that's all right. Yeah, it's early America. So this is it's the beginning of Washington's 2nd term. So that's the timeline. If you have seen Hamilton the musical, Hamilton is still Secretary of the Treasury at this point. And Jefferson is Secretary of State. So that's where we're at. They haven't yet quit, either one of them, but they're getting there.
I love it.
Um, so basically the Wally Chase, the series, is a historical continuity series, which means that it's one story that keeps going, but then each book has its own story. So think of it like a mini series, versus a TV show or one movie. If you sit down. So it's a continuity series, and it is a romance primarily. But it's also a family drama. It's a society drama. It has a political suspense plot, and it has a lot of humor. That was
It
important.
did have a lot of, this is probably why it kept me reading. I don't know why I have such this struggle with fiction. I have a degree in English, so perhaps it was 4 years of college where all I did was read nonstop fiction. That because my degree is in literature, so perhaps that's when I kind of wore myself out. So
I
I did
know.
really enjoy coming back and like, oh yeah, I remember reading for pleasure now.
I know. I have a good friend. She's one of my earliest readers, and was really instrumental in the development of this book early on. And she, after it came out, she binge read it, and then she quipped. She said, "This is brain candy for brainy people." Um,
Love it.
so it's smart, it's fun. there's a little bit of, Thomas Aquinas thrown in just for, I'm a lay Dominican. So, it couldn't get, there's definitely some serious themes, and I can just give the rundown of the story real quick, but there's some very serious themes, but there's also, it's pop fiction, and it is meant to be, it's meant to be enjoyable and read by a wide audience. This isn't a specialty, we're not aiming. I couldn't write literary fiction for the life of me. I know it's always joke. I know my place in the echelon, and you get the top is not it. So,
oh my gosh.
But I write the best story I can, and it's very well written. And I'm very proud of it.
Oh, you should be.
Oh,
Well,
thank you.
Before we jump in the story, though, I'm just going to back up a little bit, because even though this is a Catholic audience, not everybody, and I'm finding out, I just finished my manuscript. Rhonda and I were messaging over the weekend as we were both rushing towards the end of deadlines.
I know we get
parallel. And we actually had to move our time together so that we could, not her, was just overwhelmed with this, my first big girl book, I'm calling it. But I have discovered, so my book is about sacramentals. It's about the church traditions and devotions, and I'm discovering so many things I didn't know before. And one of the things is all of these little not secular orders, was looking for lay orders, you just said it. So you said you're a lay Dominican. So just real quickly, I don't know if not everybody, I consider
knows
myself
what that
pretty
is. Yeah.
Catholic geek, for 15 years I've done nothing really but study and write about the faith, and I'm still discovering stuff. So just real quick, what is a lay Dominican, and how does that kind of relate to your work as a writer?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So lay Dominican, also known as a third order Dominican, a tertiary. Early on, right after the founding, after St. Dominic founded the order, and not long after his passing, the Dominicans created the third order, which is how the laity can be formally incorporated into the Dominican order, into the order of preachers. And that's what I am. I'm fully professed as a lay Dominican, as a third order Dominican. So in some sense, we live the spirituality that all the friars and sisters, Dominican friars and sisters, live. We have devotion to, of course, the word as preachers. And that, for me, that manifests itself in my writing. Yeah, I don't do a lot of, this is actually doing something live like this. I've done a lot of podcasts since the release of this book. This is my first time being live on a, face-to-face. So this is kind of new for me, but.
And you're killing it. You're
oh yeah, we're working on, we were joking, we've got kids downstairs watching Mickey Mouse, like some old Mickey Mouse cartoon. And I'm just praying, please stay there.
And I explained if my audience didn't run screaming with the 2 weeks of the parakeets until I figured out what to do with them, then little kids are not going to bother them whatsoever.
That's right. We're Catholics here. Open to life.
Yes, exactly. We have life, right? We have children. We're open to life in every sense of the meaning, in our lives and in our podcasts. I'm so in on this.
Oh my goodness,
and
yes.
I do love Saint Dominic. Of course, he is attributed to the rosary devotion that we now know through an apparition with Our Lady, which nobody believed until he appeared to Blessed Alan, and he was like, no, really, that happened. Alan LaRoche, which is like Alan LaRock. I just like all of these little things about our faith. Love it. So
yeah.
I do. So is there a undertone to your book about the Catholic faith? You said a little bit of St. Thomas Aquinas is in there. I know you don't call it biblical fiction. I mean, obviously not, because it's not Catholic fiction. But is there a bit of you and the faith in there?
That's really interesting. Yeah. So basically, and I'll just really quick, I'll just go through the premise of the story, and then please. I can put the faith in here. Yeah. So the story is, the central character of the book is a young woman named Molly Chase. And the story opens 8 weeks after her father has committed suicide in a particularly gruesome way, and she is the one to discover his body. Her mother, his wife, had passed away, prior to this, and he's grieving and goes off the deep end. And as a result, Molly has what we would say PTSD. She has a lot of flashbacks. And of course, with the 18th century, you don't really have, a context for understanding this. And so this is really problematic. And what happens is her childhood friend, Josiah Robb, he comes home from sea and discovers her in the throes of this, and takes her home to be cared for by his family. And so this is all very kind of serious. And again, it has on top of this, they said it has a lot of humor, which sounds crazy when you put it next to that kind of serious premise. Spies, politics, chase scenes, fights in hidden alleys, that sort of thing.
But I think sometimes, Rhonda, I think sometimes you have to have that balance. I had Laura Phelps on to talk about her new book, Sweet Cross. And it really is that juxtaposition. Like, you can't have all heavy content, or you can't get through it. If you don't have that balance where you have a little bit of lightness, that's like, okay, let's put a little breath. Well, let's go back into it. Like, I think that's what makes your fiction work so beautiful.
Oh,
is that
thank you.
Learn how to balance these heavier topics, these moments, these intrigue, all of this with this beautiful humor that keeps you reading. I also binged it, by the way. I went to bed to read it, and I figured I would just read it for the week and every night. I go to sleep by 10. It's like midnight, and I'm still like, oh no, I need to stop reading. I need to put this down, but I couldn't.
That's the best compliment you could pay a writer. It was a page turner. No, that means a lot to me.
So good.
Well, thank you. So I mean, that's the premise of the story. Now, what's really interesting is that the story, again, set in 1793 Boston. Boston at this time religiously is a really interesting place. So you have the passage of the Bill of Rights, and the state of Massachusetts revised its own constitution to reflect the Bill of Rights, and so you all of a sudden have the free practice of religion, including the practice of Catholicism. And so there was a Catholic community in Boston at that time. They were in a old dilapidated building that used to be run by French Huguenots, or owned by French Huguenots on School Street. So you have a priest in town and everything like that. I mean, they had a community, I think mostly Irish and French. And so basically, but the story itself, the Robb family is Congregationalist. The Chase family is Anglican, but Josiah had in his backstory a very interesting experience, a very kind of mystical experience with his father, who had passed away in the Revolutionary War at Penobscot. I'm sure any Mainers out there will probably correct my pronunciation of Penobscot, but it was this terrible naval battle that obliterated the Massachusetts Navy. And so anyway, so he has this his experience that really upsets the balance of his understanding of God and faith as a child. And his grandfather, his maternal grandfather, had been a minister, and so this is kind of in his blood. And so anyway, so he's kind of an armchair theologian, and here come my kids. Oh my goodness.
It's totally fine.
Hey, Leo, you need to be quiet. Okay, sweetheart. Why don't you come sit with me for a sec?
Oh my gosh, so cute. And the name Leo. I'm just in love. How
I'm so embarrassed. Well, I mean, this is the problem, is I don't have my sitter. I don't know what happened. So anyway, I don't
we only have a few minutes left, so it's all good.
Anyway,
all good.
There. Yes, you could watch another Mickey Mouse. So anyway, so Boston is a really interesting time religiously, and my character reflects that. Come here. This is Magdalene.
Oh my goodness! I would just tell, if you're listening on the podcast, you absolutely have to go to my YouTube channel, go all the way to the end, and see this adorable little face. Oh my goodness. Just the cutest little
Oh
face
my
ever.
goodness. Yeah.
Not that your face is cute, Rhonda, but you
Oh,
make
well, thank
adorable.
you. Oh, well, thank you. And here we have another one. Yeah, so this is the story reflects that interesting dynamic in town. Josiah also, he's a sailor, merchant sailor. He's a not a captain, but a first mate on a ship. And I've got this child playing with a light. I kid you not. This is like terrible. Maggie, leave it off. Anyway, so he has a friend on the ship, one of his fellow mates, who is Neapolitan. I actually wrote that character for my mother-in-law, who is New York Italian.
Oh, I love it.
I know.
I love that.
I know. I tried to slip in a pasta fazool joke, but it didn't make the cut. Oh my goodness. So anyway, so he has, he does have a conversion story. It is a subplot. It's not the driving plot of the book, but it's interesting because Molly's father had committed suicide, and I think this is why I ended up with a conversion story, which I hadn't planned on. I didn't really want, to tell the truth. I didn't want to write a conversion story. Those are hard to write well, and without going into preachiness. And of course, the conflict isn't theological for him. The conflict is kids. The conflict is family. His mother is a very devout Congregationalist. I'm snapping. That's how we're at. Anyway, so we have anyway. So it's good, but I think what happens is that because Molly's father has committed suicide, I needed a Catholic imagination for dealing with a reconciliation with her father, and that takes place later in the series. That we need an understanding, really, of purgatory.
Yes, I love that. Yeah.
So, and that's hard. It's hard to do if you're not Catholic. So anyway, so it makes sense in the grand scheme of the series why that would be. So,
well, Rhonda, your character development is amazing. I am always in awe that fiction writers can take that just from their imagination and create a person, a believable person that you can relate to, that you want to know more about, that you're excited for, part 2, part 3 in the series. And then when you get to the final one in the series, you're devastated that you will not have time with this friend anymore. So thank you for giving me a new friend named Molly Chase. Thank you for this beautiful book, In Pieces. We're excited to see it develop and see what comes next. I will have the links to Chrism Press so that everybody can go and check it out and make sure they grab a copy of it.
Thank you.
Else you'd like to say in the final minutes of our time together?
Oh, thank you for having me on. I think that's mostly it. Thank you for everybody's patience with the 4 and under crowd this morning. Oh my gosh. I guess Mickey Mouse wasn't long enough. Oh, well.
You know what I think they taught us, Rhonda? How hard work you gave to get this book done. Here I am complaining about getting my manuscript deadline done. I don't have 4 and unders to bother me. It's all about my own productive procrastination that kept me away from getting it done. Rhonda Ortiz, her new book is In Pieces. It is part of the Molly Chase series. Excited to
hold it up again.
Yes, please. It is absolutely gorgeous cover. Go check it out at Chrism Press. I will have those links for you and in the show notes. Thank you, Rhonda, for spending this time with me today.
Thank you again, Allison. I really appreciate it.
God bless. You have been listening to A Speaking Heart with Allison Gingras, distributed through Redbox Media. God bless.